You're building up your own archive of things that you didn't just pull from Pinterest. They're not AI generated, and they're coming from your own authentic, spontaneous interests. I always come away feeling this like newfound curiosity towards something that surprises me. Hi, sweet beans. Welcome back to Wild Geese. I'm your host, Anna. So today I want to talk about how on these platforms where certainty is rewarded and like immediately understandable packaging is often the difference between your message being seen at all versus kind of just like falling flat completely, I find myself wondering how I can continue making things before I know all of the answers, because that honestly is way more exciting to me as the creator than making something about something that I've completely figured out already. Like, the most exciting moments of curiosity often come from sources that I never would have expected in moments that I wasn't trying to construct. So today's episode is gonna look a little different because I want to take you behind the scenes a little bit on how I create things that excite me as the creator. Like how I pull myself back when I'm getting lost in all of the talk about like how to optimize for whatever algorithm. And I think these practices are hugely helpful for anyone at this moment in history, not just creators. When so much of what we do in our day-to-day seems like it's in lockstep with these algorithms, whether it's the things that we decide to eat for dinner or the hobbies that we're engaged in, or the beliefs that we cling on to. So much of it is informed by what we click on. And I think knowing all of that, one of the most important skills that we can build up in ourselves is learning how to surprise ourselves again. And not just like wait for the algorithm to surprise us, whatever, but like actually actively doing that for ourselves. So I'm doing something sort of meta, I guess, in today's episode to show you how I do that for myself. Okay, I'm trying something a little bit different, a little bit new right now for me, but not even. This is how I used to do things. Basically, the new thing is I am inviting you into the conversation with me a little bit earlier than usual. Usually what I'll do is I will outline an entire episode and then come and record in the matter of a day or two. But what I used to do was much less formal than that. It was like I had an idea and I had 10 minutes that I could devote to talking about it. I would sit down, I would talk about the thing that I wanted to talk about, and then I would come back another day and I would look through the transcript or listen to what I said, and then I would respond to myself as if I was having a conversation with myself. And I feel like I kind of forgot that this is how I used to do things because it's not an efficient way of doing things and it doesn't always really work for my schedule. But last night I was writing in my notes and I wrote a question that I want to focus on for the next couple of weeks. And sometimes I just know that something is going to be a podcast episode as soon as I write it down. I'm like, that is what I want to focus on right now. Like, that's the question that I'm holding. And that's what happened here. The question that I was asking myself is, what does it mean to be creatively free? And there's a couple of reasons why this is a question that I'm holding in my hands right now, and I'll talk about those. But I just wanted to say that Eliza Day has this concept that she talks about called universal Google, aka the power of sustained inquiry. And what that means is just holding a question without pushing for or searching for an answer, allowing the answer to come to you in whatever form it will. Because often the answer that you're looking for is not going to come to you in like the package that you expect. You know, like if you're going through something very emotionally challenging and your question is kind of like deep and intense, you might think that the answer to that is going to come in something like poetry or self-help books, but then it actually comes in like a piece of fan fiction that you were reading just for fun. And I feel like I've played with that idea on and off throughout my time with Wild Geese, but sometimes I like don't trust that the answer is going to come to me in its own time, in its own way. As soon as I wrote that down and started thinking about all of the things that are happening in my life that have pointed me towards this question of what does it mean to be creatively free, I thought of a time when I was creatively free in a different way at the beginning of this podcast. And so that's why I was like thinking it would be interesting to go back to my old way of filming and making this. Because when you first start something, when there are no expectations on top of it, aside from what you're putting on it, that's a different kind of creative freedom than you get when you've been doing the thing for a while and you've gained some sort of success from it and there are outside expectations put on it. I think life is like this constant dance of moving before you've got outside validation and then getting validation sometimes and then still allowing yourself to change after the fact. that cycle shows up in so many different areas of our lives. And I think specifically within your career, it can be really hard to navigate if you're all on your own. So that's why I'm happy to partner with today's sponsor, Strawberry.me. So Strawberry.me connects you with certified career coaches that help you get clear on your goals and then create a personalized strategic plan to achieve them. Maybe you're changing industries, maybe you've been applying to jobs for a while without much luck, or maybe you just know that there's more out there for you, but you're not sure what your next step is. I've been there in all three situations. The last time I wasn't sure what to do next in my business, it helped tremendously to have an objective third party who was qualified to guide me, but then ultimately let me define what success looked like for myself. The part I like most is that it's not just another person giving you advice. They help you actually think strategically, which is not my strong suit, and then they hold you accountable because it's all about the follow through. It's all online, so you can meet from anywhere, and you don't need to be like an executive or something to participate and grow from career coaching. If you've been waiting for the right time to take your career more seriously, you can get matched with a certified career coach on strawberry.me/Anna Howard and get 50% off of your first session. Like, I remember if you go all the way back to an episode called Notes on Coming Back to Yourself from like a year and a half ago at this point, I've got this like long hair, I'm in a different room, so many things about my life looked completely different at this point. And I remember starting that episode and having no idea what I was about to say. One night I was coming home from the gym and I had one little thought. Like, I'm not kidding when I say it was one sentence. And I was like, okay, whatever, fuck it. I'm going to hit record and start talking. And that's how I started to find the groove with recording little snippets and then listening back and having little conversations with myself, basically. Because believe it or not, I am not a person that can actually just speak for 30 minutes straight. But all that to say, I'm just recording this first part way sooner than I would usually be recording, just to pose the question and put it out there that this is the question that I'm holding. I'm not like pushing for answers. I might come back to you a week from now and have no answers. I just thought it would be kind of a cool way to begin this episode, to start it by reminding myself of my way of working back when I was creatively free in a different way. After recording this, I'm going to go live my life. I'm going to not worry too much about answering this question for myself and just trust that the universal search engine, whatever, the sustained inquiry that Eliza Day talks about, has my back. There have already been so many things circling around in my life that have pointed towards this question. Like, I had a client who wanted to start a podcast. And so for like 3 months, we were working together, we were doing one-on-ones, and it became clear pretty quickly that this person really admired people that had podcasts, and they thought that it like strategically made the most sense for them based on these like big long-term goals that they had in their life. And so much of working with this person was peeling back the layers of corporate project management and all of the messages that told her that she would like feel safer and more connected if she had some sort of following, the layers of protection and procrastination that were happening in her impulses to like make a to-do list for everything and really plan things out, but then not execute. So much of us working together didn't actually point towards starting a podcast. Usually when I work with a person, it's like, okay, A to Z, here's how to start a podcast. And we're doing all of the technicalities, all of that together. But with this person, it really became like, oh, actually, we need to explore what you actually want, because it seems like you've been doing what you think you should be doing for a really long time. And then by the end of it, she reached the conclusion that she wants to write a book. She doesn't want to start a podcast. And it was just so interesting working through all of that with her, because she needed to be reminded a few times how much creative freedom actually existed in the fact that she didn't have a mass audience. Like, no one expected anything from her in this arena of her life, you know? Like, she might go to her 9-to-5 job and have a boss that expects XYZ from her, but in this arena of her life, like, no one expected anything of her. So when no one expects anything of you, what do you actually want? And that's a really exciting question to answer. It's like scary, sure, but it's also really exciting. So there's that level of creative freedom. And then I've also been watching interviews with Emma Chamberlain lately because, you know, she stopped her podcast. And I didn't really listen to many of her podcasts, but I have been getting into vlogging lately. So I've been watching her vlogs because I think that she's an incredible vlogger. I'm sure she's a great podcaster too. But she, for the time being, has stopped doing all long form content. And she said that it's because she really needs to like root into herself and what's what's next. And she has the creative freedom now to have so much money that she doesn't even need to worry about taking a long break. Like, that's a different kind of creative freedom. But she doesn't have the creative freedom that my client had, in that no one has any expectations of her. People expect a lot from Emma Chamberlain. Like, in one of the interviews that I was watching, she was saying that she feels like she needs to show up in order to be a good friend to her audience. And I've obviously been thinking about it for myself. Like, I feel like I've been dipping into so many mediums with writing and vlogging and podcasting and these things that at one point I did not have the creative freedom to do because I didn't have the hours in the day. And now I have the space, and that's a place of creative freedom. But I do feel some level of expectation to like show up in a certain way. So all that to say, that's why I'm thinking about this right now. I'm going to sit on this question. I'm going to carry it around with me. What does it mean to be creatively free? And I'll talk to you in a bit, and we'll see if I've found the answer. Something tells me it's not a cut and dry answer, though. So we'll see. Okay, hi. It's been a couple of days. After filming that, I decided to go do a self-guided study day at the library because I had a free afternoon, and that just ended up adding more layers to this question. I'm definitely not at an answer yet. I feel like I was right to say that this is not going to be a cut and dry answer. You know what? Maybe creative freedom is just the ability to sit with your questions and explore them in whatever medium you want, for as long as you want. I don't even necessarily think I'll arrive at an answer. So if that turns you off, bye. I think that what's so interesting about YouTube and content in general is that it is so answer oriented. It's like we're meant to be an expert on anything before we talk. We're supposed to like package things up as being the ultimate answer to anyone's questions. Like, the way to make something perform is to package it as if it is the answer to someone's big question. But I also wonder if someone put up a YouTube video that was like, this is what it means to be creatively free, and then I watched the video and it was like a real answer, if I would be able to even metabolize that answer. I think that the most true answers that we come across in our lives are the ones that we live our way into. Okay, as an example of what I mean when I say live your way into the answers, I want to use that client that I was talking about before, who came to me saying that she wants to start a podcast, and then by the end of our time working together, she knew that she actually wanted to write a book. She came to me having done so much planning already. Like, she had done so much mood boarding and like watching videos on how to start a podcast. She had so many like concrete ideas of how she was going to make this podcast great, but she hadn't actually recorded anything yet. So after one meeting with her, I was like, okay, go record for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be anything that you ever actually put out there, but you need to feel what it's like to actually record a podcast. Like, you won't really know anything real about what you want to make and how you want to make it and what form your creative energy really wants to take until you start and lift this out of the planning space. Like, planning your next move and watching 10 steps to launching your podcast is not going to give you the same information that actually sitting down to record a podcast does. You can't even meaningfully see the gaps in your knowledge and ask the right questions that would get you to the next step until you've experienced the gaps in your knowledge. And actually putting these things in action and putting herself in the place of the person recording a podcast changed her question. So like, when we first started working together, the question was, how am I going to start a great podcast? But slowly, while working together, because she was actually putting herself in the seat of the podcast host, her question changed into, do I even want to be a podcast host? What form does my creative energy actually want to take? She found herself being able to get lost for hours in the writing process, but when it came down to actually sitting down to record, there was always a block there. I feel like living your way into the answers often does just lead you to asking better questions. That's why it's kind of interesting to me to think about like the optimization of platforms like YouTube. If you're starting a YouTube channel and you listen to any YouTube expert on like how to get eyes on the things that you're making, the YouTube expert will tell you to package what you're making in a way that makes it immediately clear to the audience that it's something they need to click on. And I'm not talking about clickbait. Clickbait doesn't really work in the way that it used to. But like, you're trying to create this sense that what you have created directly answers a question that that person is asking. like it's the answer to someone's problem. And it makes sense why this works, right? Like we come to YouTube looking for answers, whether we like really think of it consciously as that or not. It's kind of an extension of Google. Like maybe we're not doing what we do with Google, typing in a very specific question into the search bar. But when you're searching on the homepage looking for the next thing you're going to watch, you're most likely to click on something that seems like it's directly speaking to something you're dealing with. But from a creator's perspective, it's very limiting to think of what you're making as only being valuable if it's providing cut and dry answers. Oh my God. I just had to bang on my wall a bunch of times because there's something literally rattling in the walls. Not like an animal, like some sort of mechanical something. I don't know. Anyways, what I was saying, like think of your favorite movie or TV show. Like, do you think the people that made that set out to make it because they were like, oh, I've discovered something that everyone needs to know, so we're gonna make this movie about it? Or do you think they made it because they were like confused about something or grappling with something in their life and they wanted to process that through what they were making? And from the perspective of an audience member on YouTube, the answers that are provided are often kind of unsatisfactory. Like they can definitely give me a piece of what I'm looking for, but until I like bring something into practice in my own life or actually embody a new perspective or shift my belief system personally, it can be like empty information that I never actually act on. And I don't think that's necessarily the fault of the creators. I just think it is like the most satisfactory answers are not served to you on a silver platter. And that's not to say that I never learn anything from other content creators. That's literally not true at all. I share the wise words of other content creators on this show all the time, but I try not to make it too much of a habit to like outsource my decision-making skills and look to other people for direct answers to questions that I have, because it is part of the creative process to let my questions be open and to be open to the answers in whatever form that they come. And I can feel myself when I start to do that and I start to like only click on things that seem like they're gonna answer my question directly, whatever. I can feel when I start to do that and it starts to feel like the things that I'm intaking are getting less and less rich and more rigid. And when I feel myself doing that, I try to pull myself back so that I can leave some room for serendipity.
The cost of miracle is mystery. You can do anything. But if the only way you are willing to let happen whatever you want to happen is through what your mind knows, which is only a very small portion of the multiverse, there goes your miracle, babe. To live the I can do anything life is to let go of the how. The how is the fun part because it's a surprise. It's a surprise because it's not your job. And it's not your job because it can't be your job. You're too small to do that job. You are way too small, but you're just big enough to put the order in. Your job is selection. You pick a point and focus upon it, and the rest of the cosmos figures it out for you. And so your job in practice becomes building the capacity to be with whatever comes up while you are maintaining your focus on your selection. The cost of miracle is mystery.
If I don't know how the answers will come, then I don't need to control my input so much. Like there was a time in my life when I felt like the only quote unquote good way to spend my free time reading was to read self-help books because I could get some magical answer directly from them. But I think it's a lot more fun sometimes to like loosen it up and read fiction and fan fiction and watch silly YouTube videos that don't seem connected at all to like some existential question that I'm asking, because it's so much more exciting to see the answers come in unexpected ways. That's why I love things like digital gardening and self-guided study days. A couple of years ago, I want to say it was like 2024, I saw a TikTok by Ru Yi who was talking about doing this self-guided study. And basically, the rules are you go to a library, like the biggest library in your area, and you spend the whole day there, or as much time as you can. And what you do is you pick the section that interests you the most that day. So if it's art, it's art. If it's sports, it's sports. If it's cooking, it's cooking, whatever. You walk through the racks with no particular book in mind, and you pick up anything that grabs your attention and holds it for more than 3 seconds. And you do this until you've got about 5 to 8 books. So usually I stick with 5 because once I've got 8, I'm overwhelmed. But once you've got those books, you go, you find a place to sit, you open them up, and you see what grabs your attention. Again, you're skimming skimming. And if something is like not holding you, put it aside. And I should have said this before, but you do need to bring a notebook and pen with you, because once you get sucked into a book, you're supposed to note everything down. The title, the author's name, any key details that you come by, quotes that you like. And also if there are pictures in the book and there's anything that stands out to you that you want to refer back to afterwards, take a picture of it. You collect all of this and then sort it into your own personal archive. Ru Yi talked about doing this on Tumblr, so they used like the tagging system on Tumblr in order to refer back to things. But you can also do this on Sublime or Arena or just like the folders on your computer, whatever works best for you. But this way it's like you're building up your own archive of things that you didn't just pull from Pinterest. They're not AI generated, and they're coming from your own authentic, spontaneous interests. So that's the exercise. I've done it a couple of times and I love it because I always come away feeling this like newfound curiosity towards something that surprises me. And this time I was really drawn towards the graphic novels section. I'm not sure why, because I've never been a big graphic novels reader. I think the last one I read was Persepolis, which was great, but otherwise I think it's always been like assigned reading, and that's as much as I've dipped into graphic novels. But I picked up 3 of them and read 2 all the way through, and there was one that I was like, oh, it's speaking directly to my question about creative freedom. And it's this book called This Woman's Work by Julie Delport. And first of all, the graphics in this book are just really, really stunning. Like, this is not only an exercise for people that are big readers. I think you can go to an archival library and go to sections that are like picture books and graphic novels and whatever, and get a lot of visual inspiration as well. The drawing style in this book was so inspiring to me that now I'm like, oh my God, I want to either link up with an illustrator that has a similar style or learn how to do it myself and somehow incorporate it into my work, because I just think it's so stunning. But beyond that, this book actually added another layer to my question of what it means to be creatively free, because it kind of uncovered for me another reason why I'm asking it. To give a little bit of backstory, this author is kind of obsessed with Tove Jansson, who is the author of the Moomin series. And at one point she includes a quote about her that says, she didn't want children for fear of not being able to paint anymore, she said, but also because of the war. Then at another point she's talking about going to this convention where she's offered statistics about women artists. And one of them is about the pay gap, and she's like, I barely even paid attention to that. And she says, instead, the numbers that really anger me are these. 4.2 is the average number of additional hours spent per week on studio practice by men in the visual arts compared to their female counterparts. And she says, I see in them my own inability to concentrate on my work, my book. Out of this entire book, obviously there was a lot more material in that book, but those were the pages that I took pictures of. And then afterwards, like archiving all of this and reflecting on it, I was like, oh, I took pictures of those things because they related kind of directly to my question about creative freedom. My questions about creative freedom actually aren't just about how to live within these algorithms and all of that. It's also maybe a more existential layer underneath of like, how can I continue doing what I do and doing what I love if I do decide to do that in my life? And I'm not trying to get super personal in this episode, but if I did want to have kids, like those are things that I feel like women my age, like we start thinking about these things. What am I willing to sacrifice? And is sacrifice a loss of freedom, or is there an opportunity for a different kind of freedom within that sacrifice? Like, I don't know. This question is now getting more and more personal and deep and existential, which makes me think more and more that I will not be arriving at an answer in this episode. And I don't know how immediately applicable any of that would be to you, other than to say, like, this process is actually so much more fulfilling and interesting to me than if I were to sit down in front of you and say, here are 5 ways to be creatively free. And it's like, all right, well, you know, I have my methods, but at the end of the day, this is an ongoing question. It's an ongoing conversation with myself. And I think part of the answer maybe is the ability to tap back into that connection with myself and root into the questions and give myself permission to get lost a little bit in pursuit of the answer. And something that I really love to do is going back and rereading old notes. Like, talk about getting lost and found. Sometimes I will find the answer to a question that I'm asking now in a note that I wrote 6 months ago. And actually, funny enough, there is a YouTube video by Perry Daniels who I saw the title of it and I was like, oh, looks like it's speaking directly to a problem I have, and clicked on it. It's called Creativity Isn't a Gift, It's a System. So I saw that title and I was like, I could use some systems. Love me some systems. So I clicked on it, and really he was talking about something called the Grail method, which is just putting all of your notes in one place. Every single idea, quote, whatever, everything's all in one place. The only thing you're leaving out of these quotes is your to-do list, like putting that like planning part of your brain in a different place. But like otherwise, anything you're thinking about throughout the day that you want to note down, you note down in this place. But the key to the quote unquote Grail method, as he's coined it, is to continually return to your notes. And any little in-between time that you have, you're waiting in line for something, you're like about to go to bed, whatever, you have an extra 5 minutes, you pull up your notes, you go back and you see what you wrote a couple of weeks ago. And it just becomes interesting to see what is still sticking out to you from before. It allows you to be surprised by your own thoughts, things like that. And I had already been doing that in a slightly different way. I feel like I've talked ad nauseum about my note-taking process. So if you've been listening for a while, you might know that I was kind of creating a ritual around returning to my old notes. But usually I would just go back like to the day before and return to those. And now it's like I've got all of these really casual notes that I take while I'm just like sitting on my couch watching TV or something. And I'll just turn to a random page from like months ago. And it's crazy to me how often it will resurface something that was revolutionary to me at the time that I had totally forgotten about. It will like reintroduce ideas to me that are surprising. So I also ended up sharing that Grail method with my client because a big part of us working together was us trying to kind of get that project manager out of her head, because that's her 9-to-5 job. You know, it's like, okay, here's the to-do list all the time. And when every creative project is so dominated by the to-do list, it's really hard to access your actual ideas. And so she played with it for a while, and it helped her see the through line of her interest. Like there was something about horror that was really interesting to her that she wasn't even really paying attention to with her podcast idea. And I just think embracing the more chaotic way of doing things and like relegating that to-do listy part of yourself into a different space can be really helpful for accessing that creative freedom a little bit. And like we put so many rules on ourselves of like, here's the right way to do things, X, Y, Z, here's what we're gonna do. And it's like, what would happen if you just allowed yourself to puke everything out onto the page and routinely return to it? Even with this question that I posed to myself of creative freedom, I wrote it down here and then I scrolled up a couple of pages and I found a version of an answer, an angle of an answer. And obviously I don't feel like I've totally answered the question for myself, but it's like, oh, I've been percolating on this for a little bit. At the time I was reading the book, You Could Make This Place Beautiful by Maggie Smith. And I took screenshots of these pages and then wrote a little snippet of what I had been thinking at the time. And it's funny because my notes on like my reaction to this passage make it clear that my head was in a very different place when I read this book. And it says, after the divorce, I came across the writings of the Buddhist teacher Chojam Trungpa. As a man, he was problematic. He drank too much, slept around, and didn't live as we'd expect a great wise teacher to live. But every teacher is human. Likewise, parents are not wise oracles. They're just people trying to shepherd other people through the world. We may know the right path to take, but knowing the way and consistently walking it are two different things. Everything we learn from someone who is imperfect. Trungpa writes about Torma and dawn. Possession is the closest translation for the Tibetan word dawn, a ghost that causes misfortune, anger, fear, sickness. When you have a dawn, you are the possession. The anger possesses, owns, you. Torma means offering cake. You offer the torma to your dawn. You feed the ghost that does you harm, that which possesses you. Giving it a little something sweet is a way of saying, thank you for the pain you caused me because that pain woke me up. It hurt enough to make me change. When I read Trungpa, I thought about my own ghosts differently. Fear isn't inside me, I'm inside it. Anger isn't something I'm holding, it's something that's held me, possessed me, and being possessed is the opposite of being free. And then my own notes about that quote were me like kind of listing out the things that I felt like were possessing me at the time. And it just shows again that these questions are not things that we like just find an answer and close the loop and that's it. And I love that this random quote that I noted down from a divorce memoir months ago speaks to my question and helps me further define what freedom even means. So while I don't feel like I'm concluding at the point of having an answer to this question of like, what does it mean to be creatively free? There are so many systemic obstacles to answering that question. There are so many personal layers of it to unwrap. I think the thing that I always come back to, whether I'm at the portion of a project where I'm new to it and no one really expects much of me, or I'm at the portion where I've been doing it for a while and people expect a lot from me, what I do know about creative freedom right now is that I don't actually have to know everything in order to act on my questions, my interests, my curiosities. I can explore that state of not knowing and actually arrive at more interesting questions every time I do. I would find it incredibly fucking boring to just come here and tell you the things that I know 100% to be true, because that is not much. And I think that's all I have for you this week. If you decide to do the self-guided study activity, please share with me what you come across, because I do find it fascinating the things that we stumble upon and the way they end up lighting the way in some way. Okay, I will talk to you in 2 weeks. Bye.